On a calm Saturday evening in East Hollywood, something terrible happened inside an apartment just a few blocks from the city's busy streets. No one heard anything unusual, no loud noises, no cries for help. But behind that door, a quiet argument had turned into something much worse. When police and firefighters finally got inside, what they found shocked everyone, even the most experienced officers. How did things go so wrong between Kirtland Ma and the man he trusted the most? And what really happened that night? This is the story of a bright future cut short and a tragedy no one saw coming. Kirtland Ma was born on December 24, 1979, in the city of Scottsdale, located in the eastern part of Maricopa County, Arizona. He was the youngest of two sons born to Peggy and Danny Ma, a Chinese-American couple who had earlier welcomed their first son, Waylon Ma. Kirtland's childhood unfolded in a peaceful and loving environment. He was a deeply cherished child, especially by his maternal grandparents, Wing Doi Jimmy and Ellen Lee. With his easygoing nature and warm, constant smile, he had a natural charm that endeared him to everyone, and his grandparents felt truly lucky to call him their grandson. Although he showed early signs of academic potential during elementary school, it was in high school that Kirtland's passion for learning truly flourished. He wasn't just a gifted student, he was also deeply curious, always eager to expand his knowledge beyond the standard curriculum. After his regular school hours, he would attend advanced mathematics classes at another institution, determined to challenge himself further. One afternoon, on his way to one of those extra classes, he met a girl named Ann Chung. Though they attended different schools, they were the same age. A brief conversation that day was enough for Anne to be struck by Kirtland's kind demeanor and witty humor. The feeling was mutual, and from that moment on, the two became inseparable. In their third year of high school, they both transferred to the same school in Phoenix. Not long after, Anne found the courage to tell Kirtland how she truly felt. She believed he was her soulmate and confessed her deep love for him. But Kirtland, though caring, didn't share the same feelings romantically. He loved her like a sister. Anne was heartbroken, but in time, she chose to value their friendship over unrequited love, and they continued their bond as close friends. Meanwhile, Kirtland remained focused on his studies with even greater determination. His academic excellence soon stood out, placing him well above many of his peers. In 1997, he took the Standardized School Assessment Test, a pivotal exam in the U.S. for evaluating students' skills in reading, writing, and math, often critical for university admissions. Kirtland's score came close to the perfect 1600 mark, earning him the prestigious title of Presidential Scholar, an honor reserved for the nation's most outstanding students. Despite his academic drive, Kirtland was far from being all about books and grades. He believed in a well-rounded life, and that balance led him to pursue tennis competitively. He often played in city tournaments, many of which took place at local universities, further showcasing his versatility and discipline. In 1998, Kirtland began a new chapter of his life as he entered Yale University. There, he chose to major in American Studies. Settling into campus life, He was assigned to one of Yale's residential colleges, where he shared a room with Michael. The two quickly became close friends. What stood out most to Michael was Kirtland's unwavering kindness and selfless nature. He was someone who gave without expecting anything in return. Michael had been right about his roommate. Kirtland Ma's calm demeanor, patience, and genuine kindness made him naturally magnetic. Connecting with others came easily to him, not because he tried, but because it was simply who he was. His fellow students at Yale quickly took notice. With his captivating presence, sharp intellect, and unpretentious spirit, Kirtland soon earned not only their respect, but also their friendship. As people got to know him better, many realized he possessed a quiet wisdom that made him a trusted confidant. Friends often turned to him for advice, and Kirtland never let them down. He showed his appreciation not through grand declarations, but through thoughtful gestures. On trips to New York City, just a couple of hours away from campus, he would often return with small gifts for those he cared about. Although he and Anne no longer lived in the same city, their friendship never faded. In one of their many conversations, Anne asked him why he never spoke about dating women. Deep down, she believed his silence was a kind way of sparing her feelings. But she wasn't prepared for the answer Kirtland gave. In a moment of honesty, Kirtland shared a part of himself he had kept private. He simply wasn't attracted to women. With quiet courage, he explained that he was gay. Anne, surprised but open-hearted, listened carefully. Though it saddened her to think that Kirtland hadn't felt safe sharing this earlier, that conversation, free of judgment and full of trust, marked a turning point. It allowed Kirtland to embrace his identity more freely, and from that day forward, he confided in Anne about the men he was dating. When the time came to choose a thesis topic for his undergraduate studies, Kirtland decided to honor both his heritage and his American upbringing. He dove into a project exploring the history of Chinese cuisine in the United States. The result not only highlighted his academic talent, but also earned him the prestigious Henry Hayes Prize, awarded annually to the best senior thesis focused on Asian American experiences. After graduating in 2002, Kirtland set out to fulfill another dream: to see the world. His first stop was China, where he taught English and later participated in a cultural exchange program. This experience took him to Spain, where he lived with a host family and immersed himself in a completely different way of life. Those months abroad gave him clarity about his future. By 2004, Kirtland knew what he wanted next: to become a doctor. Motivated by a deep sense of purpose, he returned to Yale, this time to its School of Medicine. Once again, he stood out for his academic excellence. His medical thesis focused on the application of traditional Chinese medicine in treating HIV patients in Hong Kong. After completing his degree in 2008, Kirtland moved to Manhattan to begin his emergency medicine residency through the Albert Einstein College of Medicine. His training took place at both Jacobi Medical Center and Montefiore Hospital in the Bronx. It was during this time that he met and bonded with Christian, a nurse who would become a close friend. Together, they volunteered with a local organization of about 40 healthcare professionals dedicated to educating New York's LGBTQ+ community about the risks of drug use and unprotected sex. Kirtland's dedication as a doctor became evident when he made a rare and accurate diagnosis involving a patient suffering from an unusual type of fish poisoning. The case was so significant that it was later highlighted in an article in the New York Times. Outside of medicine, Kirtland maintained a vibrant social life. When his schedule allowed, he attended gatherings, parties, and events throughout the city. It was during this active period that he met Andre Damian Davids. Andre, born in 1977, was a New York native. Little is known about his background, but it is documented that he shared a close bond with his sister. In contrast to Kirtland's sociable nature, Andre was more reserved. He was undergoing medical treatment at the time, though the specifics of his condition were never publicly disclosed. What was known was that his treatment involved prescribed medication, often combined dangerously with other substances. Despite their differences in personality, Kirtland and Andre quickly developed a strong mutual attraction. What began as a connection soon deepened into a romantic relationship. Despite his openness in so many aspects of life, Kirtland chose to keep his relationship with Andre private for a long time. Not even his closest friends or family were aware of it. By the time he completed his medical residency, he felt it was time to take a break from the pace of New York City. Longing to reconnect with his family, Kirtland returned to Arizona in July 2012. He moved in temporarily with his parents, Peggy and Danny, grateful to be home again. Rejuvenated by the change of scenery and the support of his loved ones, Kirtland shared his happiness on social media. Soon after, he began working at two hospitals in the Phoenix metropolitan area. Though miles apart, his bond with Andre remained strong. He also kept in touch with his friends in New York, often reuniting with them during visits, whether they came to Arizona or he traveled east. Eventually, Andre began accompanying him on these trips, until in 2013 he decided to move to Arizona permanently to be closer to Kirtland. That September, Kirtland posted a photo of the two of them together online, making their relationship public for the first time. The revelation surprised some friends, including Christian, but they warmly welcomed Andre into their circle. They didn't just offer polite gestures, they genuinely tried to include him socially. However, from the outset, Andre seemed reluctant to connect. His jealousy toward Kirtland's friendships gradually became more noticeable. Over time, this possessiveness intensified, and he began asking Kirtland to avoid spending time with his friends. Kirtland, ever the optimist, remained calm. He didn't allow Andre's behavior to derail his own goals. He continued making plans with Christian, even organizing trips together. Rather than be discouraged, Kirtland believed that a new environment might help their relationship. He dreamed of moving to a more open and accepting place for LGBTQ+ people, somewhere they could thrive as a couple. After giving it thoughtful consideration, California seemed like the perfect destination. He was excited by the idea and shared his vision with Andre, assuring him that they would embark on this new chapter together. Once they relocated, Kirtland began working at a hospital in Gardena. Simultaneously, he looked forward to being more active in the LGBTQ+ community. California, with its vibrant culture and inclusivity, felt like the ideal place to do just that. True to his enthusiastic nature, the prospect energized him deeply. In February 2014, the couple rented an apartment in East Hollywood, a lively neighborhood known for its nightlife and diversity. Initially, only Andre moved in, as Kirtland had to make a trip to Japan. But upon returning to the U.S. on March 24th, Kirtland sensed immediately that the change in scenery had done little to repair what was broken. The tensions between them still lingered. For the first time, he seriously contemplated ending the relationship. On the afternoon of Saturday, March 29, 2014, after a restless night for Andre, who had used drugs and barely slept, Kirtland decided it was finally time to have the difficult conversation they had avoided for too long. Calmly, he expressed his dissatisfaction with where things were heading. He admitted he was considering dating other people. Andre, unprepared and unwilling to accept the possibility of separation, refused outright. He also rejected any suggestion of an open relationship, insisting on exclusivity. The conversation quickly escalated into an argument. Tensions flared until both men reached for kitchen knives. What began as a verbal exchange devolved into a physical struggle. Kirtland, in a moment of regained clarity, attempted to de-escalate, but Andre, overtaken by rage, did not stop. In a violent outburst, he seized the weapon and stabbed Kirtland repeatedly until he collapsed, lifeless. Panicked and unsure of what to do next, Andre called his sister. He told her they had a serious fight, but withheld the horrifying truth of what had just happened. Alarmed by her brother's unstable behavior and fearing he might harm himself, Andre's sister immediately contacted the police, sharing all the information she had. Officers were dispatched to the address she provided to conduct a wellness check. However, when no one responded at the door, they eventually left the scene. As the hours passed and she remained without news, Andre's sister called the police again. This time, officers returned to the apartment, this time with a team of firefighters. At 4:55 p.m. on Saturday, March 29, 2014, both teams forced their way into the apartment in East Hollywood. Inside, they discovered a horrific scene. Kirtland lay lifeless on the kitchen floor, the victim of a brutal assault. In the bathroom, Andre was found sitting in the bathtub, injured and holding a knife, threatening to end his own life. Beside him were his cell phone and a bottle of pills. A police officer quickly secured the weapon, and the fire department team removed Andre from the tub. Andre was transported to a nearby hospital for treatment of wounds to his neck and wrists. Meanwhile, paramedics confirmed that there was nothing they could do for Kirtland. Just before 7 p.m., Los Angeles County coroner officially pronounced him dead. The autopsy revealed the full extent of the brutality Kirtland endured. 40 stab wounds inflicted with various sharp kitchen tools. In a deeply disturbing detail, investigators found that Andre had inserted pills into the open wounds, an act of extreme violence that shocked even seasoned professionals. It was clear from the beginning that Andre Davids was the prime suspect. At the hospital, toxicology tests confirmed the presence of multiple substances in his system. Detectives met with Andre in his hospital room. He did not resist questioning. On the contrary, he admitted to the killing and explained the events that led up to it. With remorse and despair, he also expressed a desire not to go on living. On Sunday, March 30th, 2014, after further investigation, Andre was officially arrested at the East Hollywood Sheriff's Station. He was charged with murder involving a deadly weapon and held on a $1 million bail. He was then transferred to the Twin Towers Correctional Facility in Los Angeles. News of Kirtland's murder spread quickly. The case dominated headlines and drew significant media attention. Just a week later, a separate violent incident in the same apartment complex left several people injured, sparking widespread fear among residents. Many began reconsidering whether they felt safe living there. Andre's trial began in December 2015. He faced charges of voluntary manslaughter and second-degree murder. The distinction between the two was critical, as California law required the prosecution to prove whether the crime involved express or implied malice, an essential factor in determining the severity of the sentence. Kirtland's family pushed for the most serious charge, which could result in life imprisonment. The defense countered by claiming Andre's mental state had been compromised by drug use and prescription medications. They emphasized that Andre had no prior history of violence and argued that the killing occurred in the heat of passion. A classic argument for a reduced charge in cases of crimes of emotion. The jury considered several factors, including Kirtland's expressed desire to end the relationship, which may have triggered intense emotional distress in Andre. In the end, The jury concluded that the act was not premeditated. On December 17, 2015, Andre Davids was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. The sentencing hearing took place on January 21, 2016, at the Los Angeles Superior Court. The most emotional moment came when Waylon Ma, Kirtland's older brother, addressed the court. He spoke directly to Andre, expressing the anguish and rage of losing his brother in such a brutal way. He wished that the memory of the crime would haunt Andre for the rest of his life. Under California law, involuntary manslaughter carries a sentence of 3 to 11 years. The judge imposed the maximum term, 11 years, plus an additional year for the use of a deadly weapon. The verdict deeply upset Kirtland's loved ones and many in the broader community, who viewed the sentence as far too lenient given the cruelty of the crime. Some even called for a retrial in hopes of a harsher punishment. But the U.S. Constitution's Fifth Amendment barred a second prosecution for the same offense. Andre's legal team appealed the 12-year sentence, seeking to have it reduced. The appeal was heard on November 17, 2016, by a panel of 3 judges in California's 2nd District Court of Appeal. The defense requested a mid-range sentence of 6 years. But when the deputy district attorney described the crime scene, calling it one of the most horrific she had encountered, the judges were left with no doubt. In her closing argument, the deputy district attorney emphasized Andre's danger to society. The judges upheld the original sentence, stating that the severity and brutality of the crime justified the maximum punishment allowed by law. Though Kirtland Ma is no longer physically present, his memory endures powerfully in the hearts of those who knew and loved him. Christian, in particular, has spoken about the profound pain of losing someone so special. Friends and family remember that Kirtland disliked saying goodbye, an attitude that now offers them a quiet sense of comfort. To them, his warmth, love, and luminous smile remain alive, woven into every memory and in every life he touched.
Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.